maybe because you had a supermajority and you gave us a Republican healthcare plan. Maybe that has something to do with it. You had a supermajority and this one example disproves it. He pretended to be for the public option for 2.5 seconds, immediately backed off that and did the Republican healthcare plan. And again, this was while he had a supermajority. He says, oh, what am I supposed to do? There's nothing I can do to change it. But see, that's the nefarious part.
Okay, I guess Kyle has just decided to double down on this talking point, and ignore that this alleged supermajority included Independent Senator Joe Lieberman, who by the way, had endorsed John McCain in 2008. It was Lieberman who threatened to join the GOP in filibustering the bill if it included a public option. And this was his final year in the Senate, therefore not someone who could be pressured with an opposing nominee. So I repeat, Independent Joe Lieberman, whose vote would be needed to make for a supermajority, is the reason we didn't get the public option. Kyle is just willfully ignoring this and doubling down on an old, comfortable soundbite. Okay, so Kyle recently uploaded another video where he repeats the supermajority myth and trots out the fake scenario where it's these mysterious blue dog Democrats who are holding back progress on the public option. Obama, he argues, should have put these mysterious and nameless blue dog Democrats in a political headlock until they caved. Zero mention of the fact that it was Independent Joe Lieberman who was the reason the public option was defeated. He also judges policy pledges from 2008 by 2020 standards. But, I'll get into that later. Before we get started, don't forget to click or tap the subscribe button and notification bell icon. Okay, let's go.
Gave us a Republican healthcare plan. Maybe that has something to do with it. You had a supermajority, and you gave us the healthcare plan of the right-wing think tank, the Heritage Foundation, a plan that was originally Mitt Romney's plan, a plan that was supported by Chuck Grassley and Newt Gingrich. That's what you gave us. You kept the for-profit health insurance companies in control when you had a supermajority. Kidding me? Are you kidding me? There's a reason why you guys don't fight forget Medicare for all. You don't even fight for a public option. Why? Because they take money from the for-profit health insurance companies, so the reform they did had to keep the for-profit health insurance company profits in mind. Money doesn't impact me. Of course it does. It's human nature. Of course it does. Who you're taking your donations from is everything. So when you take money only from small dollar donors, you're only going to represent the small dollar donors. If you're taking money from lobbyists and corporate PACs and billionaires, you are going to represent their interests. For sure, and that's what he did. That's exactly what he did. By the way, when he says, I disagree with the way Bernie and Elizabeth talk about this publicly, he's talking about, oh, they act like money in politics is nefarious. And his point is, it's really not nefarious, because it's not that the money's impacting me, it's that I just didn't have the vote to get this progressive legislation done. This one example disproves it. He pretended to be for the public option for 2.5 seconds, immediately backed off that and did the Republican healthcare plan. And again, this was while he had a supermajority. He says, oh, what am I supposed to do? There's nothing I can do to change it. But see, that's the nefarious part. Because politics isn't this stagnant thing where everything is set in stone. Politics is fluid. So you know what you do in a situation like that? You take the blue dogs, who are an issue, who don't want to back a public option on Medicare for all, you call them in your office and you say, listen, if you vote for this bill, I will make sure you get reelected. I'll personally campaign for you. The Democratic Party will fund your reelection campaign, and you'll be good. If you don't vote for this, I will personally campaign against you, and we'll support a primary challenger against you, and we'll flood your primary opponent with all the funds in the world, and we'll make sure you don't have a career in Washington, D.C. So you make your own mind up.
Okay, I guess Kyle has just decided to double down on this talking point, and ignore that this alleged supermajority included Independent Senator Joe Lieberman, who by the way, had endorsed John McCain in 2008. It was Lieberman who threatened to join the GOP in filibustering the bill if it included a public option. And this was his final year in the Senate, therefore not someone who could be pressured with an opposing nominee. So I repeat, Independent Joe Lieberman, whose vote would be needed to make for a supermajority, is the reason we didn't get the public option. Kyle is just willfully ignoring this and doubling down on an old, comfortable soundbite.
Finally, we have less than a minute left. The House passed health care. What do you think of the bill they passed? And do you still intend, if there is a public option and if there's this tax on so-called Cadillac health plans, will you support a Republican filibuster on final passage in the Senate?
Well, there's some good things in the House passed plan. You know, I think we ought to do health care reform this year to deal with the two great problems that President Obama and others have talked about. There are unsustainable, continuing increases in the cost of health care. We've got to stop that. And there are millions of Americans who don't have health insurance. But I'm afraid that our colleagues in the House added a lot onto that subtract from the genuine purposes of health care reform. And one was to create a public option plan. The public option plan is unnecessary. It has been put forward, I'm convinced, by people who really want the government to take over all of health insurance. They got a right to do that. I think that would be wrong. But worse than that, we have a problem even greater than the health insurance problems, and that is a debt. $12 trillion today, projected to be $21 trillion in 10 years.
So at this point, I take it you're a no vote in the Senate.
If the public option plan is in there, as a matter of conscience, I will not allow this bill to come to a final vote, because I believe the debt can break America and send us into a recession that's worse than the one we're fighting our way out of today. I don't want to do that to our children and grandchildren.
Senator Lieberman, thank you.
So yes, the healthcare plan was passed during this alleged supermajority. But that alleged supermajority included an independent senator who, by the way, had endorsed Barack Obama's opponent John McCain. So no, this person did not belong to Obama, and therefore, this wasn't Obama's supermajority. Kyle keeps alluding to these blue dog Democrats that Obama needed to pressure. Well, who are they? Kyle can't seem to name them. He just assumes they were the problem. The public option made it through the House, so the House Democrats weren't the problem. In the Senate, it's Independent Joe Lieberman who threatened the filibuster. I have no idea if Obama did or didn't place pressure on Joe Lieberman. But I think people like Kyle just assume it never happened because Obama didn't announce it on Twitter. What we do know is that this was Lieberman's last session in the Senate, and he was replaced by an actual Democrat. So maybe he did pay a political price, or maybe he was retiring anyway and didn't care. Hence, Kyle's hypothetical pressure scenario is kind of irrelevant. By the way, even this alleged supermajority only lasted a few months. It began when Al Franken was finally sworn into the Senate in the summer of 2009 and ended in early 2010, when the late Ted Kennedy's seat was replaced by a Republican. Also, throughout much of 2009, Senator Byrd and Senator Kennedy's health kept them out of many if not most of the hearings. So even counting Independent Joe Lieberman, it was a supermajority on paper at best. So whatever healthcare bill could be passed, needed to be passed within this small window of time, when the Democrats had some semblance of a supermajority. Kyle really should know all of this. He was already creating political videos by this time. I would imagine that if he were really interested in seeing the public option pass through the Senate, he would have been paying attention to the actual process. Also, going back in time and lambasting Democrats for not passing single-payer back when a public option couldn't even make it through the Senate seems a bit ridiculous. But, back to what Democrats did to try and pass the public option. Even after all of this, Senators Chuck Schumer and Jay Rockefeller made last-minute attempts to introduce amendments to include a public option, before the signing of the bill. So Kyle is simply engaging in revisionism, no doubt unwittingly, and thereby providing cover for the GOP, who was doing everything in their power to fight Obama on everything. Here are Mitch McConnell's infamous words.
Our top political priority over the next 2 years should be to deny President Obama a second term.
Okay, let's tackle the Republican healthcare plan soundbite. These are the reasons this was not a Republican healthcare plan. First, the GOP never embraced it. Rather, the Democrats and Independent voted it in despite their opposition. The GOP has been slowly killing this bill ever since. If the GOP actually wanted this healthcare plan, they could simply give it a slight makeover and introduce it under a different name, as Trump did with NAFTA. Lastly, we can see what an actual Republican healthcare plan looks like, by simply observing the Republicans' proposed healthcare plan, which has no resemblance to Obamacare. The idea that Obamacare was a Republican healthcare plan is based on inference and non sequiturs. Yes, Mitt Romney passed something similar in Massachusetts, because regionally, Northeastern Republicans are reasonable compared to their national counterparts. It doesn't follow that this would have any GOP support on a national level. For example, as governor of Massachusetts, Mitt Romney was on record supporting indexing minimum wage to rise with inflation. Here he is being asked about it, and him giving the politically expedient answer, by not answering whether he'd support this as president.
I know in New Hampshire that they work to scale back minimum wage, and I haven't heard you talk about minimum wage on the trail. I was wondering what your position is.
My view has been to allow the minimum wage to rise with the CPI or with another index so that it adjusts automatically over time.
So you'd support that as president?
I've already indicated that when I was governor of Massachusetts, and that was my view. Thanks.
Can you imagine any GOP president pushing this? Obviously not. Then there's the argument that it's the Heritage Foundation who wrote much of the concept for the Affordable Care Act. This is supposed to prove that this makes Obamacare a Republican plan. But the Heritage Foundation's proposal, which was proposed in the 90s, never had popular support with GOP politicians, even back in the 90s, when they were less crazy. I was pretty active during this time, phone banking and canvassing, trying to do my part in getting support for these bills. I was watching and paying attention to these political battles that were unfolding. The GOP broke the record on filibusters, and defeated bills like the Bring Jobs Home Act, which would have ended tax breaks for outsourcing, and incentivized companies to bring jobs back to the United States. You know, the types of bills that I would think Kyle would support. Then there is the American Jobs Act, which Obama proposed in 2011. This would have provided funding to modernize at least 35,000 public schools and community colleges, funding to protect the jobs of teachers, police officers, and firefighters, funding infrastructure projects, and more. According to Moody's, this would have created 1.9 million jobs. The bill was voted along party lines, meaning Republicans defeated the bill. So it's a bit disheartening to watch Kyle Kulinski repeat the false GOP argument about Obama having a supermajority. This just provides cover for the GOP and the lengths they went to stall and prevent progress.